Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're retaking a deep dive into a moment that forever changed the course of American history, the Battle of Gettysburg. It wasn't just a battle. It was the turning point of the Civil War, a brutal three-day clash of ideals, courage, and sheer human will. So, grab a seat, and let's travel back to the summer of 1863. To really understand Gettysburg, we need a little context. By mid-1863, the war had been raging for 2 years. The Confederate general, Robert E. Lee, and his Army of Northern Virginia seemed almost unstoppable. He had achieved stunning victories against larger Union forces, most recently at Chancellorsville. With morale soaring in the South, Lee decided to do something bold, take the war to the North. His plan was ambitious. By invading Pennsylvania, Lee hoped to relieve the pressure on war-torn Virginia, gather much-needed supplies from the rich northern countryside, and, most importantly, threaten major cities like Philadelphia and even Washington, D.C. A decisive victory on northern soil, he believed, could shatter the Union's will to fight and perhaps even lead to foreign recognition of the Confederacy. It was a high-stakes gamble that would bring two massive armies to a quiet Pennsylvania town that no one had ever heard of. As Lee's 75,000-man army marched north, the Union's Army of the Potomac, numbering around 95,000, raced to intercept them. The Union commander, General Joseph Hooker, was replaced by General George Meade just 3 days before the battle. Imagine that, taking command of an entire army right before the most critical engagement of the war. Meade, however, was a steady and capable officer, and he quickly moved his forces to counter Lee's advance. The stage was set, but neither commander planned for the battle to happen at Gettysburg. It was pure chance. It all started on the morning of July 1, 1863. A Confederate division was heading towards Gettysburg, supposedly in search of shoes. They unexpectedly ran into Union cavalry just west of town. What began as a small skirmish quickly escalated as both sides fed more and more troops into the fight. The Union's Iron Brigade fought with incredible bravery, but they were heavily outnumbered. By the end of the day, the Confederates had pushed the Union forces back through the town of Gettysburg itself. The retreating Union soldiers scrambled to fortify a strong defensive position on the high ground south of town, a series of hills and ridges known as Culp's Hill and Cemetery Ridge. Day 1 was a Confederate victory, but the Union held the high ground, a crucial advantage that would define the rest of the battle. Day 2, July 2nd, saw the fighting intensify dramatically. Lee was determined to dislodge the Union army from their strong defensive line, which resembled a fish hook. He planned a massive two-pronged assault. On the Union left flank, Confederate General James Longstreet was ordered to attack key positions: Little Round Top, Devil's Den, and the Peach Orchard. The fighting here was some of the most savage of the entire war. One of the most legendary moments happened on Little Round Top. The hill was initially left undefended, a critical oversight. A Union general, Governor K. Warren, spotted the impending Confederate attack and rushed troops to the summit just in the nick of time. The 20th Maine, commanded by a college professor named Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, found themselves at the very end of the Union line. They repelled wave after wave of Confederate attacks. Finally, out of ammunition and facing another charge, Chamberlain ordered one of the most audacious moves of the war, a bayonet charge. The exhausted men of the 20th Maine surged down the hill, surprising and overwhelming the attackers, and saving the Union flank from collapse. It was an act of sheer desperation and incredible courage. Meanwhile, on the Union right at Culp's Hill, the fighting raged into the night, but the Union line held firm. Day 2 ended with immense casualties on both sides, but Meade's army had not broken. This brings us to July 3rd, the final, decisive day. Despite the failures of the previous day, Lee remained convinced that one more grand assault could break the Union center. He believed Meade had weakened his center to reinforce the flanks. This led to the fateful decision to launch a massive infantry assault against the Union position on Cemetery Ridge. This attack would become immortalized as Pickett's Charge. Around 1 p.m., the largest artillery bombardment of the war began. For nearly 2 hours, over 150 Confederate cannons pounded the Union lines, shaking the very ground. The Union artillery answered back, and the air was filled with smoke, fire, and the deafening roar of cannonade. When the Confederate guns fell silent, thinking they had shattered the Union defenses, the infantry emerged from the woods. Roughly 12,500 Confederate soldiers, led by Generals Pickett, Pettigrew, and Trimble, began their mile-long march across open fields, straight into the teeth of the Union army. It was a magnificent but horrifying sight. The Union artillery, which had conserved ammunition during the duel, opened up with devastating effect, tearing huge gaps in the advancing Confederate lines. As they got closer, Union rifle fire ripped through their ranks. A small, brave fraction of the Confederates, known as the high watermark of the Confederacy, managed to breach the Union line at a stone wall. But they were quickly overwhelmed and either captured or repulsed. In less than an hour, the charge was over. It was a catastrophic failure. More than half of the men who made the charge were lost. Seeing his broken soldiers streaming back, a distraught General Lee rode out to meet them, taking full responsibility, saying, "It is all my fault. The Battle of Gettysburg was over. The cost was staggering. Over 3 days, there were more than 51,000 casualties, making it the bloodiest battle of the Civil War. On July 4th, the same day the city of Vicksburg surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant in the West, Lee's shattered army began its sorrowful retreat back to Virginia in a torrential downpour. The Confederate invasion of the North had been decisively defeated. Gettysburg, combined with the victory at Vicksburg, marked the definitive turning point of the war. The Confederacy would never again have the strength to launch a major offensive onto Union soil. The momentum had shifted permanently in the Union's favor. 4 months later, in November 1863, President Abraham Lincoln visited the battlefield to dedicate a national cemetery. There he delivered the Gettysburg Address. In just 272 words, he masterfully redefined the purpose of the war, transforming it from a conflict to preserve the Union into a struggle for freedom and equality, or a new birth of freedom. He reminded the nation that the soldiers who died at Gettysburg did not die in vain, but so that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The story of Gettysburg is a powerful reminder of the immense sacrifices made to shape the nation we live in today. It's a story of strategy, chance, unimaginable bravery, and profound loss. The echoes of those 3 days in July 1863 still resonate through American history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this video interesting, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to explore. Until next time, stay curious.